Ramattra is the new tank hero in Overwatch 2, coming out in Season 2 tomorrow. So today let's go over some tips and tricks you can use to play him effectively. First things first, let's go over his primary fire. Now his primary fire is the form of his staff, which does 100 damage per second and is a projectile based weapon with no damage fall off, which can also headshot, which means that you can essentially play at a safe distance and still deal significant amount of damage. Just like any other projectile based weapon, you will need to lead your shots to actually hit the enemy, but luckily there is a couple of things in Ramattra's kit that encourages the player to get closer, which can make hitting those shots super easy. One of the things that helps him close the gap between the teams is his barrier, which has a massive 1000 HP, and the barrier goes on cooldown immediately on cast, so you can expect to get the barrier out there very often. The barrier spawns in a very similar manner, such as May's Ice Wall, so expect to have to be very precise when placing your barrier, especially if you're planning on placing it on a high ledge to help out a out-of-place teammate or even a sniper. Keep in mind, you cannot spawn your barrier in Nemesis mode. However, you can cast the barrier and then go immediately into Nemesis mode without it going away. So you don't have to worry about your barrier disappearing when swapping forms. You might need to be a bit mindful on how you play when you swap between Nemesis mode and regular mode because his kit changes a bit. Nemesis mode gives you instantly 150 armor, which can be used as a survival tool to suddenly get the edge on a 1v1 or survive attacks, but it also changes your primary and secondary fire. Your primary fire is no longer the staff, but is instead your fist, which pierces through pretty much everything. It even pierces through shield, so you can deal 60 damage per shot, firing every 0.6 seconds, which is once again 100 damage per second, more or less, to multiple enemies at the same time with the same shot, which can allow you to deal damage to multiple enemies at the same time if they're lined up properly. This attack can, however, not headshot. Due to the fact that it can pierce through barriers, with this as well, you can easily harass enemies that rely on a shield for their main protection or even get a confirmed kill on a player when you normally couldn't because they ran behind a barrier. This attack has infinite ammo, and it can only travel up to 11 meters, so it doesn't have infinite range. This attack cannot be absorbed either, so if D.Va is using defense matrix, it doesn't suck up the shot, so you can damage enemies even if they're trying to absorb your projectile. Now that you're in Nemesis mode, you, as mentioned before, no longer have your barrier, but instead you have a block that functions pretty much the same as doomfist block. You block 75% of the damage in front of you and move 50% slower. This block has no cooldown and works on AoEs as well, such as Hanzo's ultimate. You can toggle this on and off quickly for easy mitigation of damage with no cooldown. One attack that is shared between forms is arguably one of the most interesting new abilities that we get, which is Ravenous Vortex, which is a projectile that only activates when it hits the floor. So it bounces off walls, enemies, slippery slopes like roofs. Once it hits the ground, it deals a big AoE that deals a total of 30 damage if an enemy is caught during its full duration of 3 seconds. The AoE slows enemies by 33% and most notably pulls enemies to the ground. Enemies inside have a super weak jump, so this can be used to directly counter slippery characters such as Genji, Winston, or Echo. This range is not infinite, so if a Pharah is high up in the sky, she won't really get pulled down at all. You can also use this to help your team confirm kills since enemies will be slower, and it can also be used for area denial. One key thing to keep in mind is that because of the fact that your barrier that you summon doesn't go away when swapping forms, you can use this to give your team optimal protection before switching over to your other form or going into your ultimate, because upon activation of your ultimate, you are stuck in Nemesis form for the entire duration of your ultimate, which is sometimes very long, which can leave your team struggling for a safe space due to the fact that you're going to be encouraged to step directly in front of the enemy team to keep the ultimate going, or you can even use this advantage to allow you to deal damage safely to the enemy team with your ultimate dancing around the barrier that you summon if they don't retreat. Now his ultimate spawns an AoE that is 11 meters long that constantly deals damage at around 30 to 40 damage per second to enemies caught within. The ultimate only lasts for 3 seconds, but the duration doesn't go down while you're dealing damage with it in the AoE. This AoE is similar to Zenyatta's ultimate, where it follows the player character around, so it's advantageous to try to constantly advance on the enemy to keep the ultimate going as long as possible. The best way to use his ultimate is in situations where the enemy won't want to retreat, like during objective points. If the enemy is in overtime and their only saving grace is to be on the point, but you are essentially covering the entire area in Hurdy Juice, then it's going to give your team a huge advantage to secure the point or even get a win, so make sure to use this ultimate as an area denier tool to allow your team to win. As mentioned before, the AoE is 11 meters long, which can essentially cover the entire capture point if you're in the middle, so you can really do huge amounts of area denial with this attack. The general consensus with this new tank hero is that he's extremely OP, and I'll tell you right now, there's a lot on his kit that can allow you to be very powerful and essentially control every single team fight. So if you use him correctly, you're going to essentially get some easy wins, but keep in mind, he's not the easiest hero to play. So take your time, learn the hero. He is only just coming out, so don't be too disappointed if the hero doesn't immediately click with you. Practice makes perfect, and as always, a big shout out to the members who make these videos possible. We got Clairvoyance, Rick Iglesias, and Cameron. These are the people who support me as little as $5 a month on Patreon and YouTube, and you can also support me as little as $5 a month by clicking the link in the comment description or in the top left. The more members we have, the closer I get to becoming full-time, which of course means more videos for you guys. And as always, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and I hope you all have a great day. Bye-bye.
And the last shall be first to immerse in a pass out heat, facing him up with a moxie melt till he woke up drowning in tchotchke hell. More in a cave with a torch on a wall than a window arrangement of porcelain dolls.